Hi folks, I'm the Colonel of the State Police. I have my staff members that will introduce themselves, but we know there's been a lot of discussion about immigration policy all around the country, in the state also. What the state police want to do is we want to foster trust. We want anybody in Rhode Island or any place who is a victim or they have an issue to come to the state police. It's extremely important to us, and that's why we're here also. We want to discuss the methods that we have in our policy with you. So if you have any questions, we can explain exactly. So what I'm going to have my staff do is just introduce themselves, and we're going to open it up. We're going to talk about our policy a little bit. And again, this is extremely important to us, and this is a great turnout. And thank you so much for doing this and for coming to headquarters. I'll just have my staff who will introduce themselves quickly.
Lieutenant Colonel Joe Philbin, Chief Investigative Officer.
Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Barry, Deputy Superintendent.
Major Christy, I apply the Inspectional Service Unit, which oversees the community outreach programs with our community partners.
Darnell Weaver, I am the Director of Training.
Paul Andrews, I'm Chief Legal Counsel here at State Police.
Christine Sansa is the Victims Assistance Provider for the Rhode Island State Police.
Thank you again for coming. We have folks coming in. I'm going to let Lieutenant Colonel Philbin just open up the discussion.
I think you've all been supplied a copy of our policy. Myself and the legal counsel got together about 2 months ago and just looked at our policy. We took a couple things out just because they were outdated. There was things we did that said doing there, those numbers of contacts were outdated. We made a few adjustments, but like the Colonel said, we want to make sure that people who are victims of crimes or who know of a crime, that they feel free to come to us without prosecution from us, or, we're not, I think you'll see in the policy, the Rhode Island State Police does not enforce. We're not immigration agents. We don't enforce immigration law. We're not immigration agents. We don't even go down that road. It's in the policy several times. I think the thing is we want people to look at the policy. It's a long policy, and any questions you may have, we would like to put you at ease or give you the correct. There's a lot of information, there's a lot of misinformation out there. We want to make sure everybody knows what exactly the Rhode Island State Police does in certain situations and what we can do for victims of crime. The most important thing here is we want to investigate the crime that people are bringing to us. If they're a victim of a crime, we want to investigate that crime. That's the bottom line. That's what we're here for. So if there's any questions with the policy, it's basically just open it up to you people. If any questions, just feel free to ask away. Yes?
What is the policy of the Rhode Island State Police regarding ICE agents coming to state police headquarters? And do you require them to wear identification to show that they are ICE?
We have currently we have several task forces out there. We work with immigration on several things. ICE agents are not permitted to come to headquarters and speak to someone at headquarters about their immigration status. That's just, if we have, let's just give you a scenario. Say we have someone in custody that has a legal deportation order. Okay, but they've committed a crime in our eyes also, a larceny or something. They've stolen, whatever it may be. Immigration agents, we do not permit them to come to headquarters and speak to that person about their immigration status. If they're somehow involved in the crime that the immigration agent is investigating, which probably wouldn't happen, we would be the lead in it, then they can talk to them. But if they want to talk to somebody about that, they have to go through their whole process of presenting that document to a judge, bringing them back to their facility, and then speaking to them. They're not allowed to speak to them about their immigration status at our building.
I'm thinking of a little bit different situation where a crime victim comes to Rhode Island State Police to present their situation. I would like to know that if there is an ICE agent on the premises, that they're clearly identified as an ICE agent.
We wouldn't have a scenario where we don't have immigration agents very rarely here, and they would never be. I see what you're saying. They would never be. Say a complainant came to their front desk, which where it would stop. An immigration agent would never be within those confines. It's just the only place they would possibly be would maybe on the second floor working with detectives. They would never be. They would never have access to someone that comes in to report a crime.
Good. I would publicize that.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Is there a distinction between detainer and warrant in the eyes of the state police?
Deportation is actually called a legal deportation order. A warrant is what we identify warrants is a court warrant or an affidavit, an arrest warrant. That's how the immigration orders that come from a federal judge, like a warrant for failure to appear for a domestic or a vandalism complaint. That's how we view a warrant. But from our legal counsel, the way they refer to it.
It's really an order.
Yeah.
It's an order, but people use it interchangeably. They say a deportation warrant. It's really an order. We try to use the right terminology.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Would the state police allow ICE agents to come in for enforcement of civil immigration law?
To headquarters? No.
Of civil, no.
No.
But not, but for a, a felony, something like that?
Yeah, you're never going, per our policy, you're never going to get a scenario where an immigration agent is allowed to speak to someone in our custody about anything besides what they're in our custody for, which wouldn't be an immigration issue anyway. It'd be the crime that we have them there for, which wouldn't happen anyway because an immigration agent wouldn't be involved in an investigation like that. We have one on our fugitive task force. They pick up fugitives, but we'll make sure they're clearly identified as members of our task force. For example, that's a good point because I said we have several task forces out there. We have agents from everywhere, FBI, HSI. But when they're assigned to our task force, a task force that's run by the state police, they abide by our policies. That's a big distinction. Because you're going to see task forces out there with several Providence Police, Warwick Police. But when they're a member of the Rhode Island State Police Task Force, which would be our HIDA, our drug task force, our fugitive task force run by us and the U.S. Marshals, they abide by Rhode Island State Police policies. They actually have to read the policies and sign off on them before they're allowed to practice as a member of that task force. Yes?
So I'm going to say the things in Spanish first, and then I'm going to translate it for you afterward. So, ¿trabajas la policía estatal con el ICE en operaciones como la invasión de hogares y lugares de trabajo? Does the state police work with ICE in civil immigration operations in Rhode Island, such as ICE raids in homes and workplaces?
No. No, we do not.
Okay.
Not at all.
Y la policía estatal transfiere a los detenidos al ICE solo por ser indocumentados? I'm pretty sure that's a variation of her question, but I'm going to say it anyway. Does the state police transfer detainees to ICE for being undocumented?
No. No, we do not. If they have an order of deportation or deportation order, so we have someone in our custody that we have criminal charges against, we will take them to court. If they have a deportation order, that will be presented to the judge as part of their immigration case. Our case will be separate. I'll charge John Doe with vandalism. Then immigration will be allowed to speak in that court saying, Your Honor, by the way, we have a deportation order for that subject. That's not up to us to present.
Okay. ¿Y cómo sabe ICE que la policía estatal tiene a alguien detenido si la policía no lo informa? How does ICE know that the state police has someone arrested if the state police does not inform them?
That's a good question. So, again, we use John Doe. I arrest John.
Question, I'm sorry.
Good.
How does ICE know that the state police has someone arrested if the state police does not inform them?
And the answer to that is, if we have criminal charges on someone, they are taken back to headquarters or the barracks that has jurisdiction over that. They're fingerprinted. As soon as somebody is fingerprinted, those fingerprints go to the federal agencies, state agencies, immigration, and they'll send back an alert. We have a deportation order for John Doe from whatever country it may be, and whatever reason the deportation order is for. At that point, it's on immigration to contact us and let us know that we have. Hey, by the way, I'm giving you verbal verification that we have a deportation order for that person. The rest is on them. They're going to have to produce that order. They're going to have to go when we go to court. Like I said, it's not up to us to tell the judge about a deportation order. If they don't show up in the court and the judge asks us, we will tell them. But we don't. That's on immigration. But yes, you're right. As soon as somebody is fingerprinted, it's out of our hands. It goes to every federal agency in the country. It actually goes to Interpol everywhere. So anything that happens to them anywhere, basically in the world, will come to us. And that's how immigration is made aware of it. They have an office where the names will be sent.
Just to be clear, that when you get fingerprinted today, it's not like the old fingerprints you see on television shows, right? These are electronic machines that you put your fingerprints in. They immediately are sent out, via computer to these other agencies. So that's why we can get it back pretty quick.
Right.
So I'm going to take a second just to translate that.
Sure, go right ahead.
Entonces lo hacen por las huellas. Lo que pasa es que ponen las huellas en la máquina y eso le alerta a los diferentes agencias nacional y internacional, incluyendo inmigración, los federales, Interpol y todas las agencias están alertados de esa persona. Entonces eso es como ICE sabes cómo han llegado a ser detenidos. Pero ellos personalmente no lo contactan, eso es, le corresponde a ellos hacerlo de su manera y coger los pasos para venir y a detenerlo ellos mismos. Pero la policía personalmente no los contacta.
Any other questions? There are a couple people back with questions.
Does someone have a question in the back? I saw that hand go up.
Yes, thank you. When some of our organizations met with the governor, we had asked about limiting the state police from participating in the surveillance of political and religious groups, which we know have happened elsewhere. But we didn't see anything addressed in this document or the policy about that. And I'm wondering if you could address what the current state police policy is on that.
On surveillance of political or religious groups, something like that? Surveillance is that sometimes we have to conduct surveillance on groups that come under our radar. We can't really eliminate that. I'll just tell you, like post after 9/11, I worked with the Joint Terrorism Task Force along with Lieutenant Colonel Barry. And there was a lot of surveillance done on a lot of different organizations, and it was the way it was back then. Very rarely do we do that now, but we're going to conduct surveillance on people we feel may be of interest to us.
Or groups.
Or groups.
If you think about it, organized crime.
Yes.
Hells Angels. I think that would be included.
It's a matter of public safety.
Yes.
Is there a written policy that describes what types of situations would fall under that? Or is
It's not really. It will go case by case basis. You know what the reason for the surveillance would be. We don't conduct a lot of surveillances. We have detective bureaus that do a lot of it, but as an agency, we do some of it, but I wouldn't consider it a lot. But it's like the Colonel said, it's a public safety issue.
Yeah, it's just something that needs to be done. It's something that comes up.
Yes, sir.
My confusion here, sometimes a deportation order by ICE is not or is something that the state police must abide by.
No, if you look at actually, we put it right now, the first section A of the procedure part, right now, investigating and enforcing violations of federal civil immigration law is not the responsibility of the Rhode Island State Police. So you're correct, sir. We don't enforce it, but it becomes part of the investigation that immigration has to handle on their own. So if someone has a deportation order and we have them on other charges, like I said, that's up to immigration. We'll let the court aware, they've been aware of that. We don't enforce that, so.
Maybe I can clarify a little bit. I think people are confused about a detainer, a deportation detainer. That case in Massachusetts dealt with the deportation detainer, where an ICE agent used to be able to call the police and say, hey, look, for no good reason, we think maybe that person is undocumented. Could you hold them? And the police routinely would do so. We don't honor any type of a detainer like that. The only detainer, it's not a detainer, the only order we honor is a deportation order signed by a judge that person is being deported. So anything like the deportation detainer, they can ask us to do it, we won't do it.
But when you say you honor it, what does that mean that you do when you discover that there is an actual
An order? If you look at the policy, there are two attachments to the back. So we would have to receive both of those attachments telling us that there is a deportation order signed by a federal judge. We would take those to court with us and inform the judge. Most likely, if we are investigating a crime, and that crime is serious enough, that person's going to be held anyway. So these things only come into play when, say that person goes to court and gets bail. All right, so now the only thing holding them, if anything, is this deportation order. And that's up to the judge to make that determination. We just make them aware of it.
And you're affirmatively required to make them aware of it even if ICE hasn't gotten itself involved yet?
They've gotten themselves involved if they have sent those documents to us.
Okay,
They would have to come up with the real order at some point.
right.
I'm not exactly sure how long they have. I've heard 48 hours, because what we would do is, we would send someone to the ACI. We don't hold people here. So the ACI is well aware of these documents. They won't accept anybody unless they have these documents, the 2 documents that I'm talking about. And if that third document, I guess the order itself doesn't come within a certain period of time, they'll release that individual. So that's the only time. And I hope you understand there's the 2 different things. The detainer, we're not dealing with the detainer at all, that's off the table. Just these 1 orders, it's only one particular reason we would hold somebody.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm here from the State Council of Churches, Rabbi Franklin from the Board of Rabbis. There are others of us from the faith community. And a year or so ago, we had a big meeting in one of the churches in Providence with a couple hundred people who were interested in providing, or at least talking about the possibility of providing a safe place for people who were about to be deported. Would you be likely to be there if there were 200 church people there and congregational people there, Jewish people there? Do you show up at those kind of events to see what trouble?
Yeah, as part of our community outreach program, if I'm invited or we're invited as a division, we will be present.
So we invite you to come.
Yes, ma'am.
If we invited you to come, you would come.
Absolutely. A number of our community partners are here today. I attended the forum at Providence PD within the last year. I know a number of people here who were at that forum. If we're invited, we will attend. If there's questions you have, we'll answer them.
And what would your reaction be to those of us from the faith community who are considering offering sanctuary in our churches, our synagogues, our schools?
That's something that you can do. You have a mission that you're on. We have a mission that are on, but that is totally up to you as far as sanctuary churches. And we will go to the meetings, and if we can help in any way as far as explaining, people have questions, especially we're very concerned about victims not coming forward, we will be there.
We're certainly not going to go there and try to arrest people, if that's one of the things you're thinking about. Rather than go there and start asking for identification. That's totally nothing that we would get involved in. The only time we're going to get involved in this is if we get someone under arrest that has a detainer order that we've been talking about, signed by a judge. That's the only time we're going to get involved.
Thank you.
Two questions. First, to follow up on the fingerprinting process. To get the specifics, suppose a trooper pulls over a car for a minor traffic violation on 95. The driver and the passenger are unable to present a proper license. What are the next steps that happen if these people end up getting into getting their fingerprints taken? And
I'm glad you asked that, because we went through it. If you're, that's probably one of the biggest concerns. So you're stopped on Route 95 for, like you said, traffic violation. If you're the operator of the vehicle, you have to identify yourself to us. You have to show you have an active license and so forth. If the operator of the vehicle gives us a name that he or she is going by, we must check that name to confirm you have an active license. It's not to check anything else at that point. If we check that name and no license comes back, well then you're stepping into the zone of obstructing because you're not giving us a name that we can verify or it's a false name. That would bring criminal charges. Do you understand what I'm saying? So say you didn't have your license on you and you gave me a little name, John Doe, I run John Doe, you have a license. Okay, here's the ticket. That's it. You don't get run through NCIC or BCI. It's just a license check to verify who you are. With that license check will come a social security number, which I would ask you and give you a social security number to verify that you are indeed who you say you are. But as it progresses, if we can't identify you, then the trooper on the road is going to suspect that there's some kind of obstruction going on because you keep giving different names, which we run into occasionally.
But, I mean, if I give my real name, I don't have a social security number because I'm an undocumented immigrant.
Mm-hmm. And you have an active license.
No.
No, you don't have an active license. No.
No, you would be issued a violation.
You'd be issued a violation.
The car would be towed. You'd have to go to court on the violation. So I prosecute all these in court. I run into that all the time. And what we do is we try to give people opportunities to get their license before they find them. But it's a fine now. A suspended license or a license or no license at all, it's just a violation now. It used to be a misdemeanor over years.
Well, what happens to, so the car is towed, is the person taken to state police headquarters?
No, it's a traffic summons.
Just like a speeding ticket.
If the car is towed, what?
Well, you can't drive the car.
You can't drive the car, so.
Say they have
Let's say
a
one
license
calls.
operator with them,
Yeah.
we turn it over to that license operator. But if they're by themselves, the car would be towed.
And we just talked about this upstairs, I think you're probably gonna get to the point of, you don't have a license on you, and you may have a warrant, or an order for deportation in that, and, you're the operator of that vehicle, will be taken into custody. No, we would not, because we don't have criminal charges on you. We just have a traffic violation. That's probably the biggest question we get. I'm glad you asked that, because that's a good scenario. You don't have a license, you're undocumented, you don't have a social security number, so you don't have a license. So it shows up when we run your name, it shows up you have an order of deportation. There's so many names for it. It used to be called detainers. Will we take into custody? No, we wouldn't. We wouldn't. We would issue the traffic summons. Of course, immigration is going to be made aware of the fact that we have you stopped, and they will probably call up and say, well, we did have him stopped, he or she stopped. Here's the result of that. Do you have the headquarters? No, we don't.
How would immigration be told?
Because if we run the name looking for a license, and we can't find a license, can't find anything, we have to know who we're dealing with for public safety. Unfortunately, on the side of the road, number one, it's a very dangerous spot. We have to know who we're doing. Now, this is just operator-wise. The operator must identify them. So you can ask the passengers for an ID. They really don't have to produce one. Most people do, but you don't have to produce one. But you have to know who you're dealing with for public safety.
So it's not just the fingerprints, it's just.
Yeah, if you run someone.
Running somebody will alert ICE.
It depends on how you run them. Like a license check will not. A BCI, NCIC, Triple I, these other, they will bring it up.
BCI and would you?
NCIC is the National Crime Information Center. That will bring up anything. BCI is a state, like a state Rhode Island BCI.
When you have a person on the pulling somebody over, how do they determine what level of notification is warranted? Because I think what a lot of us fear, and we want to go by the good graces of those that are wearing the badges, but we do fear that somebody might be pulled over because they happen to not be the right skin, they happen to not be the right whatever, that sort of creates that mental alert. Oh, this is a potential immigrant, and the immigrant might be somebody that shouldn't be here. And so there's this nether world of what can we assume is the nature of that crime that is going to alert people, and that a lot of other people might not find themselves in this net.
That's not how we operate.
Well, I want to.
And we just want to make clear that that's not how we operate as an organization. And what the colonel was talking about is when we actually have a violation, and then it may be taken to another step. But what you're talking about, that's not how we operate as an organization.
You'll see it in several of our policies that our troopers do not partake in bias-based policing. We do not do that.
It's in this policy.
It's in this policy, right in this one, but it's in several of our policies. So the captain's right. We do not.
But again, all right, let's go back to what you did say, which was originally it was just the fingerprinting, but then it was the levels of notification, some of which can be in the ICE network.
Correct.
And it seems to me it's up to an individual who they get in touch with them in other words, if it's really a benign occurrence of someone jumped a stop, and
Right, but the way the scenario was given, it was John Doe gets stopped, he doesn't have a driver's license. We check, and he doesn't have a driver's license.
Right.
He's going to be issued a violation and sent on his way.
Okay.
But if the officer believes that he may not be telling the truth about his name, and I'm not sure exactly what the facts and circumstances around that, but that would maybe bring it up to a different level. So now maybe he would want to do some checks on the name that was given. And if he was given a name that came back through this NCIC computer, and it alerted us that there was an immigration detainer. We're not gonna do anything anyway, because there's no underlying crime to arrest him for. So I think what the Colonel was saying is, we would take that information and make a note of it. I'm not sure where that would go, to be honest with you.
Okay, but he would be let go then
He
at
would
that
be, yes.
point?
Yeah, we have checks and balances also. And I want to think that a trooper on the road, when something of this severity comes out, there's checks and balances. He's going to report that to a corporal the next, it's probably going to get to the lieutenant colonel or the captain or the colonel itself, because it is such a big thing. That decision wouldn't be made solely by the trooper on the side of the road. But I'm just telling you, if now, in the case of a traffic ticket and an immigration order of deportation comes out, we are not keeping that person for that. They are let go with the traffic ticket. Because there's really no way to verify that that person on that deportation order is that person. We don't have an ID, we don't have a license, so we're not going to hold somebody with such questionable circumstances around it. That's up to immigration to do their job.
However, if a warrant came back, which was a judge-issued warrant, you would then take the person into
No, not under that circumstance.
Well, what kind of?
An underlying crime.
Well, are you talking about a federal warrant or like a state warrant for failure to appear?
Right.
Yes, that would be, yes,
Oh,
that's a
sure.
crime. If you take it, yes.
Yeah, but not an immigration order that we were talking about earlier.
Not a detainer, but
Not a
a
detainer.
warrant.
So any kind of state warrant from a family court,
Sure.
district court, they would be taken. That's an arrestable offense.
And then the other question, just to follow up, is if you don't take them into custody, do you just leave them on the side of the road?
No, never.
That's a safety issue. We do public safety. No, absolutely
How
not.
does that
Our
work?
job is to make sure that people are safe, whether they didn't have a license or not. And we make sure we've given many rides home. If they're minors, we've called their parents. We have a responsibility, so absolutely not. No, we would never do that.
And so when you give them a ride home to their address, is that information also entered into the system?
Just the address and the ticket would be in this. If it's a different address, if the address that's given on the summons will be given, is information that someone can get.
If I can just follow
Yeah,
up, I'm still trying to understand the situation where the person is pulled over, they gave it, because you talked about the need to verify who they are. So this is a person who's undocumented, but does not have an order of removal, has been under the radar, so you really aren't able to confirm who they are. Do you still just give them the ticket and let them go on their way, or does something follow from that?
We have to be able to identify, there's several things. So say that the resident is Ulysses Province. Say the person pulled over from Providence, we can check interagency. We can check if Providence has ever had contact with this person. We can check, and we can go as far as to check, utilities at a house. You say you live at this house, we can check, does that person live there? I see what you're saying, because it does come instances whether you can't identify somebody if they're undocumented. You have to verify who that person is. We can't let somebody, let's put it this way, we can't let an operator of a vehicle go without identifying who they are. It's just public safety, because you don't know who you're dealing with, so we have to identify them.
But the reason we're asking these questions is not because he's undocumented.
No.
Because we're trying to find out who he is.
Who he is.
Start that license violation. That's the sole purpose of why the questions are being asked.
Yes, sir.
So at the end of this process, is there a mechanism for someone to plead guilty and resolve the matter without appearing before a judge, similar to any other traffic?
Traffic court.
Are you talking about like the license situation? I do those all the time. No, they show up. A lot of these people will show up. And they'll say, I'm undocumented, I don't have a license. And I said, there's no way are you going to get, no, it's a $250 fine, no further loss of license, if you eventually get a license, and that's it. The judge never asks them anything about whether they're undocumented.
No, not at all.
There's no way to do it.
I don't.
Alien, fine, pretty good.
No, not the way the statute's written.
There used to be, but they made it you had to appeal. It used to be 10 years ago, you used to be able to just pay, it was like $150 fine, now it's $50, that's what we have. Yes, sir.
So ICE does not get the name of a person who's riding without a license, who's undocumented. That does not get up to the level of ICE, is that correct?
The scenario we had there, if we keep checking the person and something comes up from immigration, I mean, I don't want you to think we don't cooperate with immigration at all. They're law enforcement agencies, so we do. If they call us, what will usually happen, they'll say, you had John Doe pulled over there, they can give me the address and the ticket, that's public information. We can give them the address that was given to us on the ticket. Well, like, that was a good scenario, we drive them back to our house, we're not gonna say, oh, by the way, we drove them back to Fort Main, that's
And
not something
in
we
that
share.
situation, that normal situation, we don't give any of that information to anybody.
Right.
50 times that will happen, and maybe one time we get something like we're
Yeah.
talking about here, that's the exception to the rule. But it's unlikely.
Yes, sir.
Well, that include information for the summons date, for example?
I'm sorry, what?
So like if this person is issued a ticket and they're issued a date to appear before the judge, is that information given to ICE as well?
No.
No, no, it's not. We give them the address and the ticket, the court date is really none of the concern. I know what you're getting at, they're gonna be sitting at the courthouse. I know.
Right, and that's happened a lot.
That has happened, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We can't really control that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't control if they, if they go outside and wait for something, that's something we can't control. That's something the judges or someone would have to address.
So it'd be worth reconsidering going back to a way to plead guilty and get a vote, so we avoid that situation.
Sorry, go ahead.
So on a traffic stop, the operator of the car is responsible, I understand, for giving identification. None of the other passengers are responsible. They don't have to, they could refuse. But I'm wondering if local municipalities' laws differ in that, say, like in Jamestown, if somebody's stopped, do you?
Yeah, well, I think each local municipality, they have their own policies in place. They deal with town managers, and they could do something different as far as, so I really can't speak for the local municipalities. We do cooperate. If they ask for guidance from us, or they ask, we show them policies, we give them guides, but they are responsible for their own towns and cities.
Colonel, as far as state law, I think that's what you were asking about. That's universal across the state. The driver has to identify himself. Passengers always ask. Police always ask passengers. But if they just flatly refuse, there's not much that the police can do about that. That's the same in Jamestown, Warwick, or anywhere in the state that we deal with.
So they couldn't, a local municipality couldn't pass a law that would then
They could try, but they
require other. I'm sorry, I didn't work it.
We could try.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I am Reverend Santos Escobar, Vice President of the Pastoral Association of Rhode Island. I have a question. I make a question in Spanish. He translation for me. Okay? Sure. Thank you. ¿Qué recomendaciones ha hecho el State Police a nuestra gobernadora para influir sobre la posibilidad de que Rhode Island se una a una lista de estados que otorgan licencia de conducir a indocumentados que están haciendo bien en este estado? Estamos conscientes que una licencia de conducir ayudaría en la economía de nuestro estado y también ayudaría a esas personas que están haciendo bien, trabajando duro por sus familias. Así que quiero saber cuáles esas recomendaciones que ustedes han hecho.
What recommendations has the state police made to our governor to influence the possibility that Rhode Island joins the list of states that grants driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants who are doing well in the state? We are aware that a driver's license would greatly improve the quality of life for an undocumented immigrant as well as the economy here in Rhode Island, and give an undocumented immigrant the possibility and the help that they need to be able to truly provide for their families. And we want to know what kinds of recommendations has the state police made in that respect.
We've done this in the past few years, and I'm glad you asked that. I think it's very important to give that opportunity and to get driver's licenses. We've worked with Ledge to put letters in, and we've spoken on that because we think it is quite an advantage because people are more responsible, it's safer for people, it gives people a chance, and it also ensures like uninsured motorists. We don't have to worry about that as much. So that we've had many discussions with the governor, and I am in support for that as the Colonel of the State Police.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious, I was just wondering how many of you who are with the state police understood what Pastor Escobar said in Spanish?
I wish I listened to a little more my 6 years. I could usually pick up certain parts of it, he was so long I lost him.
And to follow that, I'm just wondering, what kind of sensitivity training do state police go through? Not necessarily speaking a lot of Spanish, but understanding why people are here and family situations. And because we in the faith community are in the compassion business and the understanding business, and how How can you enhance that within your ranks?
It's very important to us. My director of training, training is very important to us. It's important to understand the communities, understand people, especially people who we feel are in fear to come forward to the police. We want to make sure that they do come to us and they do trust us. So we do have training in our academy alone. I'll let Captain Weaver explain a little bit of what we do, and also in-service training, constant training.
In our bias-based policing training, those types of subjects do come up, and we try to make our troopers and officers aware of the fact of the differences that different communities have when they come in contact in dealing with the police, and make them aware of those cultural differences so that they can better interact with those populations.
And one of the other things our academy does is we have several community events that the academy class does together with the instructors. So I know when I was at the academy in 2013, we went and renovated some housing for some low-income housing. We get to give, it was right around Halloween, so we had moms in there, and single moms and children that we were working with, and getting to know them and getting to that, for them to understand us a little better, and for us to also understand what they were going through in their lives. So that's part of what we do, and then we have our community outreach. So we're constantly doing that. We have our Citizens Academy, where our troopers come in, and we have people from all over the state come in, all different walks of life, and we're interfacing with them. We build relationships with them, and I think it's communication and trust. And I think those two components, where we're sensitive to what is going on in their lives, and they're sensitive to what we kind of have to do to protect ourselves on a daily basis, but also use discretion. Discretion is big for law enforcement. And we understand that things are going to happen like that, we have to do our job, but we're also sensitive to what people are going through as well. So since I've been on, and the Colonel and everybody in this room, when we came on 23, 24, 25 years ago to where we are today, we've greatly increased our mechanism to reach out to the community and interface with them. So I think it's a partnership, and I think like a forum like this today really builds on that partnership.
And if I may add to that, ma'am, part of community outreach, we work with our community partners, and we understand that their culture, many cultures, are afraid of the police. They don't want to come forward if they are a victim of crime. We constantly strive to speak with our community partners to that if their constituents or citizens in their jurisdiction or community are a victim of crime, go to their community partners. I am the conduit to the Rhode Island State Police to assist them. So that is constantly stressed. And we know different cultures are afraid of the police. We no longer want that to happen. So we're here to assist our community members. And again, we go back a long way. We know law enforcement has changed significantly over the last 20, 30 years. We are on board with that, and we will do anything that we can within our community to assist them in navigating the law enforcement process.
So advocate also.
This is we have a victim advocate too. Christine is very.
I don't speak Spanish, but I do speak Portuguese, so I understand a little bit.
So I just had a question related to the community outreach. I mean, this is an internal order, and I'm curious what the state police is doing around both publicizing what's in the order, and especially around educating the immigrant community about what it is and what you will and will not do.
This is it right here today. This is the first step, I think.
We've had discussions. People do ask us about our policy, and we do explain, but this is the best thing that really actually happened because, again, it's really important to us. We know something's happening every day. Things are coming out. And the last thing you want is people not to come forward just because they're undocumented. You can't have that. We serve and we protect everybody in Rhode Island, across the country also. We're going to stick to our job, but we're going to treat people the right way. That's what's extremely important. And having discussions with our victim advocate too. It's interesting because, we ask her, like, do you get a lot of people, do they not want to go forward with complaints? So she can educate us more of what's really going on, why they'll just talk to her and they won't come forward.
Right, so I'm a clinical social worker, I'm a victim advocate. I've worked with Family Service of Rhode Island for now 12 years. I've worked with law enforcement for 10. And what I've learned is people are just afraid, period. victims of crime, survivors, just because some of the times their offenders do manipulate and put fear in them of if you come forward, this will happen, that will happen, whether it's, taking away the children, getting deported. So I've seen the concern from the beginning of, because they've, knowledge is power, and I think educating and communicating are the key. And I've told the officers, a lot of people have come forward without wanting to press charges, and I've worked with those people. So I am available through the website, phone, my number is listed, email. We're all mandated reporters, so we do have to mandate child abuse, elderly abuse, homicide, suicide, but besides that, I just help the best I can because we all want everyone to be safe, and we're all here for the same reasons, I feel. So regarding law enforcement, I think it's just more education. I didn't know much about law enforcement, what their, serve and protect, how hard that is for them, and I've learned a lot from them, and I hope they've learned from me. But we're all here for the same reasons, to keep safe, have healthy and happy lives, and, help each other out the best we can.
Can I just add one thing? If you have any other ideas about how to get the word out there, this is your man.
But I have one question for everybody in the room. And again, obviously when President Trump was elected, that heightened this paranoia. Not that it didn't exist, we knew it existed. However, and at the beginning when the President was elected, I received a number of calls and how are we going to enforce this. And everything that we're discussing right now is what I've provided to our community partners. I've sensed over the last 5-6 months that really it's lessened. I really haven't been receiving any calls from our community partners. So if it's, I know it's still out there, but not to the level it was at the beginning. So clearly that if you need us to become a part of your community to get this message out, by all means, we want to be at the forefront to do this. Okay, so please do not hesitate to contact me on the command staff, on our website, and we'll get it done.
I'm sort of kind of following up on what he's saying. What I get most concerned about is the general public not making any distinctions between immigration and law enforcement. And so the first response I frequently get from people is, well, they deserve whatever they deserve because they don't follow the law. So I think some more outreach into the community to have an understanding of the, of that may be helpful for both, because I grew up in a legal family and I'm, a person who respects the law and the procedures of the law, but it's very hard for me when I talk to people and they become so antagonistic towards towards that bent of the law and order sort of place. And so this has helped a lot for me today to understand that's why I came. But any outreach in the communities to that effect would be helpful to all of us who are trying to get through this whole thing, this whole.
Education and training is very important, and we know it. And that's why we do have young men and women on the job, and that's why it's important for us to get the right message out there, how to treat people the right way. And so they understand, and they do, and that's what's so great about the community outreach. But we also know the training is important, and the education, and it's got to continue. Just like you said, public perception is amazing what it can do, the harm it can do, and the good it can do.
Yes, sir.
Going back to the getting driver's licenses for undocumented, as I understand it, you've made at least some way communications and passed to the governor that this should be done. There's a good idea to allow people to have licenses even though they're undocumented. Well, it's trouble for police trying to deal with someone without a license. And apparently the governor has not heeded that, because we have a statement where she signed, the first thing she was going to do when she was elected, it's big black by the way, it's been circulating in the community, that she would enable people to get driver's licenses who are undocumented. Is there any other way, or has the state police been very forceful in public about that and say, you have got to go and push the legislature, which, because we know the politics are going on there too, against driver's licenses because of this, well, insurance for people, all the rest of the public safety problem. I mean, is there any way to put even more pressure, so to speak?
Well, I'm not in a position to, I have an open dialogue with the governor and I've talked with other police chiefs who are in agreement, some who disagree. And that's the best we can do. We do the best we can with the facts and the research that I've looked at and done. I think it's going to be something that's going to be out there for a while. It's out there, it's been gained. But it's just one of those things, it's not just one person, it takes a lot of people working together and understanding. And again, it's the education and to explain why is it important to. There's a lot of different sides to this, but I do get a chance to sit with the governor and we do a lot of legislation. We do a lot because we do so many things with trying to protect all types of things and push certain things, whether it's child safety, restraints. We do our research, and sometimes we deal with the facts, and we interpret them. But I can't speak for everybody in the state, and everybody has a different view. So what we do is we do the best we can. I do the best I can in certain things. I just try to back it up with how I feel in research. And as far as pushing for things, I think there's a lot of things that are going on in the state, and I think that'll come up again. And I do support it. I know there's other police chiefs who support it too. And we'll do the best we can. It's just not a black and white issue as far as there's so much gray in between there. So, but again, we appreciate you coming here because these are things we want to talk about. We're trying to go in the right directions, and we're very concerned about the community and people and possible undocumented victims.
I'd just like to clarify your process with the witnesses. Obviously, when it's an offender, you take fingerprints, you run it through the system. Is there any way the witnesses are in that system where ICE would be able to identify these witnesses in any way as undocumented?
So do you identify a witness as a victim?
Or a victim or a witness to a crime?
ICE,
Because usually they're the
victim,
witnesses.
the person who comes in to tell you that they are the victim of a crime in any way put
Right,
into
so-
a system that can be where other agencies
Right, so the victim is usually the witness as well.
Right.
I've never seen that. I've helped with victims of crime and we work with safety planning. That's primarily the concern. So a lot of times victims are fearful of maybe they've done something before. That doesn't have to do with documented or not, that just has to do as a person. And we stress, and I stress that we're just here to help you with what the crime is committed right now in front of us. Safety first, and that's how that works. So I've never seen a concern with that. I don't know if there has been, but primarily it's if someone's involved with law enforcement, someone broke the law. So that's what they're looking at. What law was broken and who was a victim of that law, and help them out from there. So regarding the status of stuff, that's not
The victim
a
is safe
concern.
from being identified as an undocumented.
They might mention something, he or she has said I can be deported, things like that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but again, that's not the primary goal.
This is somewhat related. If an undocumented victim of sexual assault makes a report, so there's an actual report, is there any way ICE can access that? Because I know with police reports, there are people who access, actually sometimes the media will access the report, or can access it when it goes to district court. Or, so what happens? Does that happen sometimes? And is ICE really on the alert for looking all the time at, no, but can it happen? I guess we're just, looking for assurance that we can tell people we work with that this won't happen. And I don't feel really clear that we can. Do you know what I'm asking?
I've never heard of that. To be quite honest, I've never heard of it. What ICE does, I have no idea, but I've never heard.
Some of those documents you're talking about are public. Once it gets into a court file, it's public.
I understand.
Anybody can go in there, and you could go down to the courthouse today and ask for a file. But our reports, we don't give out our reports with victims' names on them if they don't want them on there. We redact those the best that we can. And if I redact too much, again, Steve gets on me a little bit there, so I'm just be careful. But yeah, I mean, we try to protect victims of crime as much as we can. But there are ways that ICE, I'm sure, can work the system to find some of this information out. So, but we don't have any control over it.
Right. But I think it's important to know that they're not scouring our databases.
Right.
They're not in our system checking names and checking to see the status or anything like that. I think it sounds basic, but it's factual that we're not allowing anybody externally to come in and scour our databases.
Really, the only way immigration's going to be made aware of it is if someone makes them aware of it. No, if some name is run through the system and makes them aware of it. Like the Colonel said, if they were sitting there going through our system, they need 10 full-time agents to go through the complaints we receive a day, so I don't think they're doing that. It's a full-time job.
So clarifying jurisdiction, would you recommend to an individual who is maybe fearful of local law enforcement to come directly to you as a victim of a crime?
Well, I wouldn't put it out, I wouldn't deliver it like that. Anybody who comes to the state police, regardless of where they are in the state, we handle a complaint and we will listen to them and we will take care of them. We're statewide jurisdictions, that's what's good about it.
Always welcome to come to us.
Absolutely, absolutely.
24/7. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, because it feels to many of us in the community that the ground that we're standing on is changing every day in that sense. And one of the things that has come to light recently is some of the new immigration-related requirements that have been imposed by the Department of Justice for the Burn JAG funding. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but they are particularly concerning because it does make it clearer that there is a responsibility for the state to notify ICE in advance if someone's in custody, so that it sounds like it's putting more responsibility on local and state law enforcement to notify ICE and not putting it on them to find the person. And I'm wondering if you're aware of those new requirements and if you're planning to agree to them to receive the Burn JAG funding.
We're in compliance. I know we're in compliance with this. We haven't had any issues.
The fact that we reach out to them when we arrest someone and we send those fingerprints out, we're complying with that regulation. So we're confident we're going to continue to get our funding.
I believe these are new requirements that will be the next wave of funding. And so
It's changing all the time, you're right. So I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, but we can talk about it later if you want.
Yeah, we'll that's what we do. I mean, that's what's important about what's going on. There are changes, and that's why we do revise things. So we're aware that it's changing all the time. And, passing on information is important too, because again, it's a public safety issue too. So we'll adjust when we need to, and I do agree with you. It's changing every day.
Yes, sir.
So what complaints?
So I'm gonna translate for him.
We'll get ready. That's it.
Hace algunos años atrás,
A few years back,
el jefe del State Police, el coronel O'Donnell,
the head of state police, the former head of police, Colonel O'Donnell,
nos invitó a varios líderes latinos a una reunión.
invited various leaders in the Latino community to a meeting.
El propósito era comenzar una relación intencional con la comunidad latina.
The purpose was to intentionally create a relationship with the Latino community.
Aunque el coronel O'Donnell ya no siga más aquí en la en el State Police, queremos que esa relación continúe.
Although the Colonel O'Donnell is no longer here at the state police, we would like to continue that relationship.
La comunidad latina necesita echar fuera el temor que hay hacia ustedes y trabajar algunas cosas juntos para evitar ese temor.
The Latino community wants to set aside the fear that we have of the state police and create ¿cuál fue la última parte?
Una vez hagamos trabajo juntos, ese temor se va.
And as long as we're collaborating and working together on different initiatives, that fear will subside.
Absolutely. Thank you. We want that. We will continue to do that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just had as I listen, I just had a question about jurisdiction. Supposing that I, as a pastor, have somebody who, a situation of domestic violence or rape or any kind of a potential issue, do I bring that to the local police or do I bring that to the state police?
So we encourage the victims to go where the incident occurred. Okay, so it's not where you live, it's where the incident happened. So if you live in East Providence and the incident occurred in Cranston, we'd encourage you to go to that local police department. If for some reason they don't want to, they also have the state police, but that's usually encouraged to go to your local police department first.
And if the local police don't respond, then we would come to the state police?
Absolutely. The best bet is probably to come right up here because we can just disperse it out to the barracks that covers that area. Now detectives are based out of here.
Ma'am, what do you mean by not respond?
Will not take the complaint seriously. Or I have a clergy colleague who was stopped for supposedly, because of the color of her skin, supposedly for a broken taillight. When she got home, there was no problem with the taillight. Where does she take that kind of complaint?
So are we talking domestic
No, in
violence
this case,
victim
we're
or
talking
traffic
about violence.
issue?
A potential traffic violence.
Well, with domestic violence, there's victim advocates in all police departments. They have different names, police liaison, law enforcement advocates such as that. So there are advocates in the police departments. And regarding the ticket situation, I'm not sure.
It's important that if somebody feels that they have been mistreated, to really start with that local police agency, because you have supervisors and other people in that, they want to know that, and they need to know that, and they have people who can investigate that, because if there is an issue, it's really got to be taken care of. We do have people that do reach out to us, and we will contact those departments and investigate and see what's going on. But I think it's really important, if something happens at a local police department and somebody says they were mistreated, start from work your way up, because sometimes that can be taken care of immediately, but they need to know. They still need to know.
And most departments have a professional standards unit, used to be called internal affairs. So those agencies, a lot of them are now state accredited, they had state accreditation, and that's a requirement of state accreditation to have that professional standards unit. So they take those complaints very seriously, and there's a mechanism in place for them to look into that.
Just to follow up on that, there often can be, I think you would agree, a gap between policy and practice. And there certainly is a perception that I hear about from the immigrant community about the way traffic stop enforcement works. And I've been here a long time. I know how Rhode Islanders drive, but I'm always surprised, excuse me, at how many people we hear about, Latino drivers we hear about, pulled over for not using their directional signal to change lanes. Now, you go out on the highway, you could pick anybody you wanted to. How do you address the perception that traffic violations like that are being used by police as pretext to stop people based on their race or ethnicity?
A lot of it's training. The motor vehicle code book is a large book too, and it's discretion and it's training. You have to really make sure your men and women are trained to understand traffic violations. So there's a lot of gray there because there's so many circumstances that go on. So I can't really speak for other people how they're doing their stops. I can speak as far as what we do to make sure our troopers are doing it the right way. We have systems in place. But other agencies, again, it's training and it's discretionary and it's so gray out there because you really don't know all the circumstances. So I really can't, we can train our people. As far as other agencies, there are some people who specialize in traffic enforcement. And there's so many in the book itself, there's so many things. It's a violation for that. It's aggressive driving, it's this and that. So that's a tough interpretation. But I think if people have a complaint and they feel they were pulled over for nothing, or it's still a violation, and you would need more interpretation, especially if somebody feels they're being mistreated or they're being singled out for not having any violations. So I think it's going to get back to an investigation at that local agency or somebody complaining or asking for more interpretation. Sometimes they'll go to traffic court and that will come up. and they'll want more of an explanation, but it's, you know, there's a lot of traffic motor vehicle codes out there.
And for this,
It would help that we do the point, that we can pull over a person for anything, so then the concern is, are people being pulled over for?
I think you have to rely on the training of that trooper or officer, and especially deal with somebody who's not trained correctly or doesn't understand or is doing something wrong. Because we're a highly accredited agency, but we investigate any complaint like that.
If I may, Mr. Brown, just to add on that, in part of our professional standards unit, they monitor, every quarter, they pull 500 tickets from various stops that we have over the course of that time period. And they go through each ticket to make sure that there's no racial profiling, the stop was correct, things like that. So we have checks and balances in place already for our troopers. And they're required to maintain those standards. If they're not, the professional unit or internal affairs officer will contact their immediate supervisor and start an investigation to clarify what actually happened there.
So in looking at the traffic stop cards, have you actually found instances of racial disparities among particular troopers? And
I can tell you we're constantly in the 97 to 99% rate that we're doing it the right way. We're very confident in our men and women here at the state police that we are doing it the right way.
Chris, you want to mention,
Yeah,
we got early warning system.
Yeah, we have a new system. As part of COIA, we just installed a new system into our professional standards. So let you take your case, Mr. Brown, where you have a trooper that allegedly stopped someone for the wrong reasons. That would be entertained by a professional standards unit. A notation would be made in that trooper's file in this, what's called guardian tracking, where that trooper was, you know, this came up. It would stay in there, so if that happened again, and was put into that trooper's, then we're gonna take it. If one trooper has a history of that in this new system, they will be addressed. It helps us keep tabs on all our 200 and some odd troopers and make sure that is not happening.
And again, in those checks, if we have a trooper that is constantly being singled out, we're going to address that issue immediately with that trooper to bring them forward. Again, early warning that do we need to intervene now? Is there a problem out there with that trooper, potentially racially profiling or something like that? Again, all our numbers are very, very high in that we're doing it the right way. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. So overall, the stats on Latinos being pulled over for traffic violations, overall, does it skew Latino? Is it larger than the percentage of Rhode Islanders that are Latino?
Yeah, we don't have the.
You don't have those numbers?
What's that quite good to clarify?
Overall, to Steve's question, overall, the number of folks that are pulled over for traffic violations, does it skew Latino? Is it a larger percentage than the actual population?
No, we also break that down individually with white, dark Hispanic, white, black, light black female.
And it doesn't, it's proportional.
It does not, okay, so they're consistent with our population. There is not one group of people that we're targeting that I can recall in all our checks that when I was there that we would focus on.
And those are statistics just for the state police.
That's us, we do that internally, okay, so go ahead, ma'am.
And if I can just say, so we actually have data for the first quarter of the CCPRA, the community, I can never remember the whole name. Anyway, and so we actually put down, I actually did some counting of the data when you, state police specifically, of searches. And when it comes to Hispanic, Black, and
Hispanic. Now you're talking about searches.
Searches,
Different
yes,
category.
correctly. Yes, because it was one specific part that we were focusing on. That actually was disproportionately higher for Latino drivers or Hispanic drivers than any other drivers.
But I think it also calls into question the search is an inventory search if that car is getting towed or if there's an arrest. So I know from those attending some of those meetings, that was a bone of contention because it's actually almost like a double reporting mechanism sometimes. So if that's an unregistered car, there's no license, part of our responsibility and policy-wise is we wind up inventorying that car. So if you had whatever's in that car that's of value, we want to make sure that you get that back in return and that we've documented so that there's nothing missing of value to you. So that's that inventory search, and I know that was sort of that.
I actually looked at the different categories. It just wasn't inventory. It was odor for drugs or alcohol. It was reasonable suspicion. There were 5 categories of it. So and in 2 barracks specifically, it was higher for Latinos.
Yeah, I'd like to see, definitely we should talk about that. I'd like to see what you have on it because
and that was just one
we're aware of. I'd like to be specific and exactly see what you have because I know there were problems with statistics before, I'm not going to get into it, as far as how it was explained to the inventory searches, so, and I know that's why they're trying to improve it.
Well, one suggestion too, ma'am, is demographics in the state. So for instance, East Providence has a high population of Portuguese, so that might help as well. So there might be more just because of the location.
Yeah, these two barracks, they do not have a high population of Hispanic.
Go ahead.
I just have a question going back a little bit. It was discussed that an officer might be flagged as maybe having stops that are not necessarily justified. I don't know if that's the right language, but it was indicated that officer is, there's an investigation and that officer is scrutinized maybe or supervised or there are questions or whatever. But that would be based on the population coming forward, individuals who have been, I mean, how does that start?
Yeah, it has to come to us, like you're saying, if that is happening, someone has to bring it to us, we just can't assume it's happening. So if you have a complaint, it has to come to us for us to take a look at it.
Which is why you were saying you really have to go to that local police department and make
It's
that
important,
known.
sure.
Thank you.
I'm just curious about, we were talking about different jurisdictions and the local police, and has anyone here among you evaluated your policy and compared it to the local in terms of the differences that are, different people will find when they're being treated by different communities? Because we've all had, I just would attach to this, several of us have actually met with our local police enforcement to find out what their equivalent to this is, and had maybe even gone to the town council level and had sometimes varying kinds of responses. And I'm just wondering whether you all are having a dialogue and trying to work out the discrepancies between the policies to try to be able to,
Again, you're gonna have different policies on it because different towns and
I
things, but
understand that.
we've been accredited since 1994, and we've had policies in place. So we have been used from other agencies as a lead, even with the state accreditation that's going on. The state accreditation is trying to get everybody with certain policies to have similar ones. So there's always work on that. There are monthly meetings, and it pertains to accreditation. It's all agencies working together. And again, they are going in the right directions because some agencies in the past didn't have any policies. We're one of the first to have it in the state, and we've continued since 1994. So the state accreditation is important, and it does address pursuit policies. So everybody can understand the liability and be on the same page. So it is working towards that. Yes, we've had those discussions. But again, each town does answer to a town manager, and we help anybody who wants a guide as a policy, or we'll recommend them to accreditation agencies across the country to see what similar towns their size are doing and things like that. So that's a great point to bring up, and we have been working on specifics with that, definitely.
A lot of our policy discussion takes place with other New England State Police organizations, Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut. We discuss policies with them a lot.
Well, I don't know, there's I didn't catch the whole story, but there was an alarming thing about Boston this morning with how the pullovers for black drivers, which was, it was. So.
Yes, sir.
I just want to know a little bit more about the state police's policies regarding, like, if you're doing a pullover or a stop with a non-English speaking person, like whether they be Spanish, Cambodian, or what's it like? Is there like a hotline that you call if you can't talk to someone, or how does that sort of
still have a hotline?
Yeah, we have a hotline, sir, that a trooper can dial into to headquarters. We also have a number of troopers that speak Spanish, Laotian, I'm not sure the Laotian is close to us. I think we have the Laotian. So if we need somebody, we can always contact that trooper to assist us. So again, but we have a mechanism in place, no matter what language that you have, we're speaking of or to, we have a conduit to obtain that information.
Does the trooper have to start that? Like, or does the trooper tell the driver, oh, I can make a phone call to translate this?
Well, all our troopers are trained at the academy.
That's one of the first things they do?
All barracks have that hotline posted there. at the front desk. So we have troopers that monitor our desks, offices. So they are the conduit to that road trooper in that jurisdiction to get that information.
Do you track usage of that hotline?
I don't think we do. That's a good question. I don't believe so, sir. Yes, sir.
Is there a way to get the statistics or numbers of those who have been stopped, who are driving without licenses for many reasons, very often because of being undocumented? What are the numbers, or can we obtain the numbers in a period of time?
How many unlicensed operators we pull over?
Yeah.
I'm sure we keep statistics for that. We
You
keep
may be able to get how many violations are issued, but I don't think it would be broken down to undocumented.
No, I don't mean undocumented, but I mean, but at least the numbers are.
We stop a lot of people for licenses and no licenses.
Yeah, we would have definitely numbers on that.
Yeah, right.
But when you say that you stop them for no license, and you don't know that, right?
Can you No, they stop- they stop for another reason.
They're usually stop for another reason, and then they go up and ask for a license.
Right. They have to-
Okay, how about one more question, and then if anybody wants to follow up individually, make Decomitas is available, and, you know, as are other members too, so if you have more specific questions that could be targeted, we can follow up that way, but.
Yes, ma'am.
I have an offer. When I listen to the questions about bias, it reminds me that the Council of Churches has developed a curriculum on white privilege. And I bet we would be interested in working with the state police and teaching some of you how to implement that curriculum. It's a 2-hour program with a lot of statements. You don't realize, most of us don't realize about white privilege, but about 3 years ago, I was stopped for speeding on Route 1 down in Wakefield, and I got caught in the speed trap because I had a clergy sign on my car, and somebody had just died, and I was in a hurry, and he didn't, you know, I just said, well, I was in a hurry, I guess I was speeding, you were, he said, so just be careful, you want to get there alive. But if I'd been Black or Latina, I probably would have been ticketed or more at the speed I was going. And we know that white privilege exists in the community, and that's really beyond the bias issue. And so we need to provide more training. We're organizing to provide training in our congregations so that people understand, if you're white, particularly if you're white male, how privileged you are in our society. I bet we could work together.
Absolutely. Please, that's why our training directors say too, but that's really important. That would be for a constant training for us in service, absolutely. Thank you very much, and we'll definitely follow up on that. Thank you.